Have you ever stopped to think about how much it actually costs to buy an election? I know it's a dark question, but honestly, it's a necessary one. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are decoding a seriously fascinating and urgent white paper that lays out a comprehensive blueprint for fundamentally redesigning campaign finance. We're talking about stopping political corruption directly at its source. Campaigns are the lifeblood of democracy, but as we'll see, they're also incredibly vulnerable. So, we're going to walk through exactly how we can build a system that replaces shadows with sunlight, using strict digital trails and powerful oversight.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. We'll start with the universal vulnerabilities in the campaign danger zone, then look at radical transparency and digital trails, strict controls and oversight, rewriting the legal framework, and finally, the Island State Challenge.
Section 1. The Campaign Danger Zone.
We really need to establish the core premise of our source material right up front. Historically, campaign periods are the absolute prime time for corruption. Why? Because the old system absolutely thrives on undocumented cash, hidden donors, and reporting that happens way too late to actually matter. But the proposed new digital vision completely flips this script. It demands traceable channels, real-time, daily or weekly reporting, and incredibly strict caps on petty cash. And this matters because transparency is quite literally the strongest deterrent we have against bribery, illicit influence, and outright vote buying.
Consider this number for a second. MVR 500. This is the proposed maximum threshold for cash donations outlined in the blueprint. Now, you might be wondering, why such a specific low number? Well, 500 Maldivian rupiah is barely enough to buy a modest lunch. By setting the bar for cash this incredibly low, the system effectively strangles the ability to use cash for any meaningful political maneuver. It forces almost all transactions onto traceable, digital channels. Digital transactions create audit trails, and those trails make corruption significantly harder to hide.
Moving on to Section 2, Radical Transparency and Digital Trails. Okay, having established that cash is basically the enemy of clean elections, we now need to look at the actual toolkit required to track all this money. It starts with an immutable digital log. Think of this like a receipt printed in permanent ink that is instantly carbon copied to the public. A robust audit trail captures every single step of a transaction's life cycle. We know exactly who the initiator is, who the approver is, who the executor is, and exactly when it happened, complete with a timestamp and supporting documents like invoices or contracts. This step-by-step trail makes post-election investigations not just possible, but highly credible.
But hey, just tracking the money isn't enough, right? We also have to control high-risk activities. The source strongly recommends an outright ban on vote buying and gift distribution. Specifically, they're targeting things like cash handouts, physical goods, phone credit, and transport. These aren't just random items. They are the classic, untraceable currency of last-minute desperation used to sway voters right before they hit the ballot box.
Now you might be wondering, why restrict something as simple as transport or phone credit? It's a really great question. The answer is that unreported, indirect, in-kind contributions are massive loopholes for corruption. Imagine a wealthy donor silently topping up the prepaid data plans of 1,000 swing voters the night before polls open, or paying for a fleet of buses to transport an entire neighborhood to a rally. It looks like a favor, but it's really just undocumented campaign spending disguised as generosity. Closing this loophole is absolutely essential.
All right, Section 3, Strict Controls and Oversight. Here's a bit of a reality check for us. All those brilliant digital trails and immutable logs we just talked about, they are completely useless without active, real-time oversight during the campaign itself. You just cannot wait until after the election to see if the rules were followed. To achieve that real-time scrutiny, the Elections Commission needs a very specific set of tools. This means setting up dedicated election finance monitoring units, conducting randomized surprise audits of candidate accounts, and requiring mandatory bank statement submissions. Crucially, these systems use automated alerts to flag suspicious patterns, things like round-figure payments, repeated vendor payouts, or strange off-cycle transactions. And this brilliantly illustrates another massive vulnerability: corporate donations and beneficial ownership. You see, it's not enough to just know the name of the LLC that wrote the check. You need to know exactly who actually owns and controls that company. Think of shell companies like a giant Matryoshka doll of LLCs, designed specifically to hide the true wealthy donor nesting inside. Mandating beneficial ownership is a vital transparency requirement to expose these hidden identities and prevent individuals from bypassing donation limits.
Which brings us to Section 4, Rewriting the Legal Framework.
To actually enforce all these strict controls, a country needs a rock-solid foundation. You can't just politely ask campaigns to be transparent, right? You have to mandate it through heavy, systematic, legal, and constitutional amendments. The highest level of law must reflect these priorities. The Constitution itself has to mandate public financial disclosures. It must explicitly prohibit donations from foreign entities to stop outside interference and ban contributions from active government contractors to kill pay-to-play schemes dead in their tracks. Furthermore, it absolutely has to fiercely protect the independence, budgets, and tenure of the elections and anti-corruption commissions.
Now, let's look at how this trickles down into everyday statutory law. Election and political party laws must be rigorously updated. We're looking at legally mandating daily or weekly campaign reporting, establishing clear and punitive spending caps, and requiring a single designated campaign bank account so the money just can't be hidden across multiple banks. Finally, the sanctions must have real teeth. We're talking heavy fines and, the ultimate nuclear option, outright candidate disqualification for serious breaches. That is what forces true compliance.
Section 5. The Island State Challenge. So everything we've covered so far is fantastic in theory, but our white paper applies this entire framework to a real-world stress test, small island nations, specifically using the Maldives as a prime example. These nations face highly unique vulnerabilities. We are talking about incredibly close social networks, where literally everyone knows everyone, making anonymous corruption so much easier if left unchecked. Add to that highly concentrated wealth, where a few businesses might dominate the market, and extreme geographic dispersion. Because of small populations and concentrated monopolies, these nations are uniquely vulnerable to political capture by wealthy individuals, which makes those much lower donation caps an absolute necessity.
I mean, the geographic hurdle alone is staggering. Just imagine trying to sail physical boxes of paper receipts across hundreds of miles of ocean from a remote atoll to the capital right before a reporting deadline. It's an administrative nightmare and a massive problem for oversight. But the solution is baked right into the blueprint: centralized digital reporting. Mandatory digital platforms are specifically designed to eliminate the burden of tracking physical finances across far-flung island branches. It brings everything into one instantly auditable central dashboard.
But honestly, the hardest challenge of all might just be cultural proximity. In tight-knit island communities, reporting your boss, your neighbor, or a powerful local figure for corruption isn't just a career risk, it's a profound personal and social risk. That is exactly why protecting campaign staff who blow the whistle is the absolute linchpin of the whole system. The reform relies heavily on secure, anonymous whistleblower channels and severe legal penalties for anyone who even attempts retaliation.
When we pull all these core takeaways together, we see a totally cohesive, interlocking system. From real-time transparency in digital-only expenditures to immutable audit logs, empowered commissions, and strict spending caps, all adapted specifically to protect the vulnerabilities of an island state. It isn't just a list of rules, it's a living, breathing ecosystem where every single piece relies on the others to stop the flow of illicit money.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. We have the roadmap. The tools for radical transparency and strict oversight are clearly defined, but will these blueprints remain just theoretical words on paper, or will they be executed to fundamentally change how power is won and maintained? The design for clean elections exists. The next step is having the collective will to actually build it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking the hard questions, and I'll catch you next time.